One thing we also want to share with you is a podcast that was sent to us by email just yesterday. And it's Paul David Tripp. I don't know if you've heard of him or you've benefited from his ministry. We certainly have. These are two books that we've read by him. And I mean, this one especially helped me a lot. AWE. And George of the Jungle. That's not what I was thinking until you giggled, but then you giggled. AWE. Okay. Anyways, you'll have to watch that movie. Sorry, digression. Anyways, he traveled to Nagoya recently, and Nagoya is, of course, the city that we plan to go and serve in. And he interviewed a guy who is the current director of Christ Bible Institute. And Christ Bible Institute does a number of things. One of the things they have is a seminary there where they train up Japanese people to become ministers of the Word of God. And there's a long podcast that has been published on several different platforms, and we'll leave links to those. But it was really beautiful.
It was really beautiful. I listened to it yesterday too. And they started off with an illustration of the gospel where they use the Japanese art of kintsugi for, and that is where you have, if a piece of pottery breaks, you can reattach the pieces together using gold. And in that way, it's like the gospel, because there was once something beautiful, and then it was broken, and it seemed irreparable. But then it's fixed in such a beautiful and unique way that makes it more lovely and more valuable than it even was before.
Yeah, and it really shows off the flaws that have now become beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's such a picture of the gospel, what God does with us in our sin. And, they also get into a lot of topics about Japan itself. About halfway through, they started getting into that and talk about a lot of the issues that are there and the darkness that is there, like teenage prostitution or hikikomori, which is people who are shut in for years at a time, and also just the soaring suicide rate. And just there's that deep need for the gospel, but also the barriers to the gospel. Like that it's a very collectivist society, so it's a society where you never want to stick out or be different than anybody else. And also ancestral worship, and also that when they look at religions, they just kind of pick and choose what they like from each religion, and the idea of exclusivity isn't really there for them. And so that's part of the reason why we are going to Nagoya, is to help support missionaries who are already doing incredible work there, but as their kids get older, they don't have the educational options or care that they had before. And so by having the school here, we're allowing missionaries to be there a second decade on the field.
And it was also so beautiful in the interview, just because they shared some stories of how they've been seeing God at work in Japanese, and people who've been moved by the gospel and are seeing the truth of Jesus Christ and his love for them and his acceptance of them. And so it's just really encouraging to listen to. And so if you have time, or even if you don't have time, anyone have long drives in Houston? I know those exist.
Yes.
This would be a really lovely and encouraging thing to listen to.
So next time you're in a traffic jam, you could say, "Yes, I have time to listen to it."
Right.
That's what we would do. Except with audiobooks usually.
Yeah.
But they also, it's really cool because they also mention connections with people who have also had a big influence in our lives, like John Piper or Tim Keller. And even they talk briefly about a connection they have with Acts 29 Japan. And that's cool because the church we're coming from in Houston is an Acts 29 church. And so that was really cool. And of course, they have a really strong connection with the PCA because, of course, this CBI, Christ Bible Institute, was founded by MTW missionaries. And so definitely a strong connection with that as well.
So that actually brings us to talking a little bit more about the need. We know that we have shared with you guys before, but we haven't shared with you this really awesome article that the founder of our school, Teresa, shared this article with us over a year ago. And so we want to be able to share it with you. And it's called "To Reach the Unreached, Start Schools" by a man named A.W. Workman. And he was actually a third culture kid himself. So he has really great insight on why there's a need for schools to help missionaries stay on the field.
So I'm just going to read a couple of parts from it because I just think it's so good. This is starting in the very first paragraph. He says, "A Christian leader was once asked by a ruler of one of the Arab Gulf states what his government should do in order to keep expats in order to help expats stay longer in his country? The answer this Christian leader gave was threefold: churches, schools, and hospitals. If this infrastructure were in place, the leader explained, expats would be able to remain in that country for the long term. What is true of expats in general is also true of missionaries. We like to romanticize missionaries as rugged, frontier types who have the secret spiritual gift of being able to function as a healthy church with their lone family or small team, who treat all their medical needs with a dog-eared copy of Where There Is No Doctor, and who can homeschool their kids on the back of a camel, all while learning language and planting churches. But missionaries are mostly ordinary people with ordinary needs. They need healthy churches, decent medical care, and schooling options that will work for their kids. The lack of this kind of infrastructure is a major factor in missionary attrition, one reason why people can't stay on the field long enough to reach the remaining unengaged people groups. And he goes on to talk about how cool it would be that, a lot of missionaries enter the field, and by the time they've been there for 10 years, their kids have become teenagers, and that's when there's just more of a strain on the family. And he talks about how, he says, think about the impact these second decade veterans could make. That is, if missionaries are given what they need to be on the field in a sustainable way, they can have an extra decade. And if they had this second decade, what the difference they can make in the lives of locals and their colleagues. Think of the wisdom and experience they would bring to the table. Our region of Central Asia has very few who have made it to their second decade. Often, this is due to the fact that the first decade concludes with kids struggling in their teenage years. But if we can serve these families through starting schools, we may be able to double missionary longevity in strategic areas. What an outcome. So we're going to include this article here if you want to look more into it. And it's just a really fantastic article talking about how important starting more schools are for reaching the unreached.
Yeah.
And, 50% is epic and wonderful, but it's not the end.
Right.
We also need to keep on going, and there's a definite need. And so we're our team leader for Nagoya Christian School. He is the administrator of the school. His name is Robert. And Robert actually helped found and taught at a similar school to Nagoya Christian School in Tokyo that was founded 3 decades ago. And so he recently uprooted from Tokyo and moved to Nagoya to help establish Nagoya Christian School. And he has a master's degree in educational administration. And so he's like perfectly suited for this. And so he recently just recorded a short video that we're going to play for you now, talking about the need for more teachers.
Good morning, everyone. This is Robert Stewart with Nagoya Christian School. This school was started to meet the educational needs of missionary families living in the Nagoya area. In its current form, we've been operating for 6 months, and my wife Lisa and I are the only 2 teachers at the school. We have 9 students from 5 families, and they represent a number of church plants going on in the Nagoya area. In order to expand our programs to meet the educational needs of other missionaries living in the area, we need more staff. We need more teachers. And that's why Alex and Heather May are so important to the work going forward at Nagoya Christian School. They're currently raising support to come and work with us. We can't expand our educational programs without these additional teachers. Prayerfully consider being a part of what God is doing in Japan and being a part of their support network to get them to Japan as soon as possible. Thank you, and have a good day.
So yeah, we want to get there as soon as possible too. And the main thing we want to do is we want to try to get there by this summer so that we can be prepared for the fall semester of Nagoya Christian School.
That's right. So being able to get there this summer would allow us to have time transition into living there, which we definitely know we need after moving from Houston to Santa Fe. That transition was...
If we need it there, we're going to need it in Japan.
Yeah, that transition was a lot harder than we thought it would be. And so we know that, and even Robert and Lisa have told us what transition was like for them, and that you need time to do that. And so we would like to be there in time to transition before starting at the school.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, as part of our main newsletter, a story about a missionary family that has been on the field since around 2015, so about 8 years, and they are the Jensens. Ben and Julie Jensen, and they have 3 boys. And like I said, they've been there for since around 2015. And we've talked about before is that a lot of missionary families, they come to the field with no kids or young kids, and a thing that takes them out the field is a lack of educational
Support and structure.
yeah, for their kids. And so anyways, they were having trouble with one of their kids, Soren, and we have been praying for them. But it's really cool. Ben and Julie Jensen, they're part of the church planting team in Nagoya, and the specific thing that they're working with are university students, because statistics show that most people come to know Jesus between the ages of 10 and 30. And so that's a really great slice of the population to love and serve. And so they've been doing such great work there, but it's really cool. In their most recent newsletter, they specifically shouted out Nagoya Christian School. This is their first real full year as a hard launch, because they have 2 full-time teachers there. And of course they need more teachers in order to serve more students, but they're very thankful for what's been going on so far. And they said it's a tremendous blessing to their family. I'm looking down here at a part of their newsletter here, and I'll read a part of it. And it says, "Our 2 older boys are so happy to have a regular school to go to outside our own house, and teachers beside mom and dad." So they had been trying to do some homeschooling, but they're just so thankful for this. And they specifically mentioned Soren. Soren's overall mood has greatly improved because of the school, being able to study outside our house with other teachers, having a few friends to meet with every day, etc. And he seems much more content being in Japan overall as a result. What a huge answer to prayer this has been for our family. And so we're really excited to be a part of being able to extend this gospel work and give these missionary families a second decade on the field.
And it's really cool to hear about what a great blessing this community has been, because it's also encouraging and hopeful for us as we plan to go to Japan, and also know that there is a community being built for our own children to be a part of as well.
And there's a phenomenon that kids who are living in a foreign country, it's hard for them to belong. They don't belong to their passport country, and they don't belong to the country that they are living in currently, and they're called third culture kids. And it can be really hard, and so having these structures in place is really helpful and important for them. It'll be important for our kids as well.
Yeah.
Also had some cool news that we learned that in Nagoya there's going to be in the next 2 or 3 years a new church plant. And so that's exciting, because not only will we be able to go to Nagoya to serve as teachers at the school there, but there will also be opportunities for us to also serve as part of this new church plant. And there's already been 2 churches planted by this church planting team, and there's a 3rd one in progress right now. So this will be the 4th church planted in the area by our team there in Nagoya. So that's really exciting. And the goal for these church plants is to work ourselves out of a job and pass it over entirely to the people who live there. And so that's really exciting to have that focus.
And just keep in mind that with having a 4th church plant, this is a city of about 2.3 million people. And so having these churches set in neighborhoods that are accessible to these people is really important, so that everyone has an opportunity to find a place where they can hear the gospel.
Yeah, and it is, I think it's the least church of the metropolitan areas in Japan. Nagoya is. So we're excited about that.